So we want to deliver you, similar to DJI, a full workflow experience where you get all the hardware and software from one provider. It all works together. There's no setup. There's no subscriptions or recurring fees, which is unheard of in the LiDAR
That's not
space.
weird.
Once you buy one of our Flux LiDARs, there is zero cost for software for life in perpetuity.
Wow. Welcome back to another episode of the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast, where we talk about all things drones and how they're being used in the Caribbean. Now, my guest today has been at the center of the drone world for years, with everything from leading enterprise strategy at DJI to managing US defense programs. Now he is driving the development of some of the world's toughest and most capable aerial platforms. And that is none other than Mr. Matt Isenbarger of Freefly. Enjoy this week's episode. Hi, Matt. Thank you for joining me on the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me today.
Not a problem. I know we've been trying to do this for a couple months now. Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm sorry I've been so hard to tie down. I've been all over the place trying to share what Freefly has been up to, and we got lots to talk about today.
Yeah, no worries, no problem at all. So Matt, for the audience who may not be familiar with you, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for me?
Sure. My name's Matt Isenbarger, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Freefly Systems. In past lives, I worked at AeroVironment, helping stand up some of their commercial efforts and acquisitions. And then before that, I was at DJI, helping them stand up some of their efforts out of their North American office in Burbank, California, and worked at Rolls-Royce before that, making airplane and helicopter engines for traditional aircraft. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything from traditional aviation to unmanned aviation, commercial, defense, consumer, enterprise, and a little in between. So it's been a really fun ride, and it's something that I really get excited about every day. Is helping customers solve their problems related to UAS, and so that's really what gets me excited, and why I found Freefly to be such a good fit for me.
Okay. So people hear Chief Revenue Officer, at first, especially for me, I thought, you would think like finance guy, but you are the guy that I see all over the place when it comes to Freefly. What is it exactly that you do with Freefly?
Yeah, so Freefly is a very small company, less than 70 people, all self-funded. So we don't have any venture capital or outside investment. We don't owe anybody any money or have any long-term debt. But what that means is that we all have to wear a lot of hats. So I actually started, they hired me on in the CEO role, but I've kind of shifted my focus to the CRO role. And so what that really means is my primary responsibility is driving revenue. And I do that through, integrating and being a good partner with all the partners that we work with, because our drones are very open and easy to integrate with. And so I foster and build those partnership relationships, as well as our dealer network. And we don't have a sales team internally that's going out and selling our product. We just have a website and then a dealer channel. And so I spend a lot of my time supporting that dealer channel as well, and the customers that they end up selling to.
Okay. So as a result of that, you spend a lot of time on the road as well. Because you are, like I said, you are the Freefly guy that we see.
Absolutely. There is no sales team. We don't do any marketing whatsoever. And so we really lean heavily on our dealers and reseller network to kind of be that, frontline support for us and maintain those relationships that they have with their customers and be those experts, right? And a lot of times they're selling a bunch of different tools, and Freefly is just providing, a certain subset of that tool offering that they offer their clients to solve those problems. So it's been a great relationship, but it does put a lot of demands on me to be all over the place at once.
But how is that? Well, clearly it's worked well, but how has that model worked? Because so when I think American-made drones, Freefly is one of the first ones that come to mind. It's probably just you and one other company, but the business model isn't traditional because, like you said, you guys don't have a sales team. So how has that affected, things like growth and exposure?
Absolutely. I think, Freefly has always been one of those companies that has wanted to grow, but grow modestly and responsibly. And so Tab, the co-founder of the company, kind of has this motto that he wants the company to be evergreen, which just means he's not really looking to go sell the company to some venture capital. The founders of Freefly have made some serious money, and so it's not really about making more money and driving growth as crazy and explosive as possible. It's really about creating the highest performing things that are the most reliable things on the market, and those customers keep coming back to us.
Mhm.
So even though we don't do any sales or marketing, we have an extremely high return rate from our customers. Once they find our product, they end up building a business around it, depending and relying on that product to be successful. And then when we come out with new stuff, they're excited to buy that new stuff. So we have been really fortunate to be profitable, over since 2011 when we started Freefly, and it's all been again organic, natural growth, word of mouth. No sales team, no real marketing to speak of, and so it's just been, really focusing on reliability.
Okay. And so I primarily knew my introduction to Freefly was the cinematography aspect of it. So I knew that there was a big drone at the time, a large drone, but it was mostly like cameras and gimbals and stuff like that. What made you guys make well, I don't know if it was you still have the products, but focus a lot more now on the industrial or enterprise aspect of the drone industry?
Yeah, so for the first 10 years of Freefly's getting started, it was all cinema focused. So the Freefly originally was founded by two guys who were going to be a two-man film crew,
Right.
and they were literally going to be on set filming for production companies, filming your latest movies and TV shows. And that's what Freefly was going to be. And so they were then doing that and doing cinematography work, but constantly running into challenges, right? The manned aircraft were too expensive. They couldn't get low enough and close enough to get the shot that they wanted. Cameras got bigger, the long lenses got longer and heavier, et cetera, et cetera. And so they started thinking about, innovative ways to capture these creative shots. And remote control helicopters, that you had to build by yourself in your mom's garage without instructions.
Yeah.
And, they crashed every time and, flew for like 4 minutes. And it's just a miserable experience, getting started. But going through that process of solving their own problems to get to that result they wanted, they deeply understood the intricacies and the nuances of filmmaking, right? And what it is that when you're on set and the director says go, that machine better work exactly right, because there's $1 million pyrotechnics going off and fancy actors around that are expensive and blah, blah, blah. So that kind of reliability and ease of use and just all of those factors that make you successful doing that then led to this business of, let's actually go create that technology and sell it to the world instead of just keep it to ourselves and use it ourselves. So while Tab and Hugh don't get on set much anymore, the founders of our company, that's really how the company started and what was the entire focus of the company, because they knew that space so well. And I think that was a huge part of Freefly's success, especially not raising money. It was all self-funded. You had to have one good, reliable product after another. You can't mess up because you don't have $100 million worth of someone else's money sitting in your bank that, is convenient. And so you just have to go make those tough decisions and do it the right way and take care of customers. And so I joined Freefly about 4 years ago. And right before I joined Freefly, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, that there's all this opportunity in the enterprise space and there's not enough people, trying to go solve those problems. And Freefly had this existing set of products that was really good and really reliable, but only focused on cinema. And so, the lights just went off in my head, like, hey, let's go take these really awesome cinema drones, put some other cameras and software on there and do a whole bunch of other applications that people are interested in as well. So not that we want to forget about cinema at all. We're still developing products for the cinema space. But I personally am trying to steer the other 62 people or however many company we have in the company now, towards kind of these enterprise applications like inspection and mapping and surveying and ag and things like that.
Okay. And how has the NDAA bubble affected you guys? Because I'm not sure how much of your manufacturing stuff was done outside of the US, but how has the need to have it all done in-house now affected you guys?
We were really fortunate to make some of those kind of domestic manufacturing decisions prior to the blue list and prior to NDAA compliance becoming, a regulation that we have to abide by. So we were just really in a fortunate spot just because we decided to source domestically as much as we possible, just because it was cheaper to not pay, longer shipping, and you get your stuff faster when it's closer to you. And so that's not to say we don't get stuff from overseas. We get stuff from all over the world. We try to find the best price performance thing. We don't really care about where it's made. It's not generally in our algorithm of decision making,
Right.
but unfortunately it has been, more so recently. So we're definitely attentive to that and make sure that our supply chain is, reliable and coming from the places that it needs to come from. But we were fortunate to kind of already be on the right side of that fence before the law came about.
So I saw that you guys moved into a new warehouse. I think it's 70,000 square feet. Congrats on that.
Yeah.
But I saw an article that said that you guys even moved your case and foam manufacturing in-house. Is that true?
Yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can in-house. And so that was part of the reason for the move. We just moved down the street a couple blocks, but we went from about a 25,000 square foot to 75,000 square foot facility. Wow. And that allows us some breathing room to bring more manufacturing in-house. And so as we grow and hire more, we're trying to hire 20 people before November 1st. Wow. Starting as of a month ago. So just to kind of give you an understanding of how the tailwinds we have, just from not only having reliable product, but the NDAA stuff and the blue list stuff and everything else. We've just got a ton of tailwinds right now and ridiculous amount of orders. So we're trying to build more in-house. I can't tell you how many times I've had 20 or 50 drones ready to ship out the door, but I don't have the stupid custom foam that goes in the case to ship out that $1 million worth of drones, right? And I'm waiting on foam. And so, just you only do that a couple of times before you get frustrated and figure out how to do it yourself. Yeah. And so, that's just one example of, biting off little chunks of the ecosystem. We always have kind of designed everything ourselves, but we always shop it out to different suppliers who can make it better and cheaper than we can. But as we understand those capabilities and gain the right people, employ the right people to do it in-house, we'll certainly try to bite off more and more in-house while remaining very open. We want to be super easy to integrate with, lean into open standards, open interfaces, et cetera, but just control more of the quality in-house, really, and drive the cost down too.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, open, and you guys manufacture the smart Dovetail. And for those who aren't familiar, that is basically the interface that the camera connects to onto the drone, or whatever sensor would connect to onto the drone. You guys have made that available for anyone to integrate with, as well as your competitors.
Absolutely. So think of it, everyone knows DJI. So if you're familiar with the DJI Skyport, it's a very similar type of connector, just connects any payload to the aircraft itself. But the difference with ours is free. All the CAD, all of the software, everything you need is online on our website. You can go download it and bake it into your payload, and then your payload just becomes plug and play on our drones. Okay. So I've loved to see that kind of ecosystem grow. If you go check out freeflysystems.com/payloads, you'll see a whole host of ours and third-party payloads that have adopted that smart Dovetail, LiDARs, multispectral cameras. I mean, it's just endless, and the ecosystem keeps growing. And it's really key because, again, as I mentioned, we're a small team. We're only 60-some people. We can't go bite off every cool payload integration that we would love to do. We just don't have the time and resources. So we've made it easy for those experts who make those payloads to then integrate our connector, and you're off and running. So we hope people continue to adopt that standard. Again, it's free. There's no cost, no licensing costs, or, we manufacture the connector ourselves and sell it for $200. So if you want to skip all the engineering, you can just go buy it right from our website.
How has having your competitors have access to that benefited you guys? Because they could use it too on their systems, right? And they don't have to develop their own.
Absolutely. So like the Inspired Flight IF800 uses our smart Dovetail, for example, and others as well. So that's how we look. There's so much opportunity out there. I don't look at it as competition, frankly, unless we're talking about DJI. Okay. I look at there's so much opportunity for all of us that, I'm not really looking at a competitive space with the other kind of NDAA compliant manufacturers, or anyone outside of DJI for that matter. It's really all of us versus DJI, in my opinion.
Yeah, everybody versus the monster at this point, because they're massive. So, in terms of the ban and what is coming with that, what are the views at Freefly of how that is being dealt with? Because I've heard persons say, yes, get them out. China is a adversary of the US. And then I've heard other persons say, we welcome the competition. We want to have them here. Not having them here could do more harm than good to other parts of the industry. How was the reaction from you guys with that?
Pilots of the Caribbean podcast audience, October 21st and 22nd, we are headed to the largest drone show in Florida. And that is none other than Elevate UAV 2025, presented by Drone Nerds. So make sure to come out, grab your tickets, and take in the live demos. So this is not just seeing the drones on display. This is actually being able to see them in operation, talk to the manufacturers, get your questions answered, and so much more. So that's October 21st and 22nd. We head into Miami, Florida. And for the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast audience, we have a 75% discount code. That's Caribbean75. So link in the description and get 75% off your tickets. Now with that 75% off, I'm not saying that you have to buy a VIP ticket, but make sure you get a VIP ticket. And I will see you in Miami October 21st and 22nd, Elevate UAV 2025. Peace.
Yeah, Freefly has always wanted to win on performance and merit, not on compliance or checking, some piece of paperwork document. So it doesn't excite us to, have that advantage in that way, but obviously it's an advantage. And we've had a bunch of tailwinds and, we've probably gotten a lot of orders that we wouldn't normally get because of it. So from a company perspective, I'm grateful that we're growing, but I don't think it's necessarily the right way to win anything. And I think there's other ways we could have spurred compliant innovation other than just kind of banning the competition. But I'm not a politician and I'm not in charge of any of that. So unfortunately I don't have a lot to say, but I think it is a real threat just in general. The American manufacturing capability outside of drones and just in general has really waned over the last several decades. And so, it's kind of, it's not ideal that drones are caught in the crossfire there, and being singled out. Compared to some manufacturing industry, but I think we need a revival of American and manufacturing outside of China in general.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think that, with the point we are now, probably the American drone industry should have been a couple of years ago, because it now seems like everybody's kind of racing to play catch up.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems with DJI being so good and the prices being so low is it kept a lot of smart people who would have invested time, energy, and their brain power into making cool new drones. They just went and worked on other stuff, right? They worked on AI and they worked on fintech and they whatever, something besides drones, because they saw DJI, the gorilla in the space, and it just it made it very tough to go compete.
Yeah, I saw you guys recently launched. Well, not launched. What was it? Partnered with a LiDAR company. And you guys are now offering on-site processing as a part of on-site processing of your data capture as part of the LiDAR workflow. Oh, because we know LiDAR is this massive data collection and it takes a while to do when it doesn't do off-site with your RTK processing and all of that. How have you guys managed to do all of this now on site?
So we like to think of things in first principles when we're designing anything. And so what that means is we try to think through what are the right way to do this and the best possible experience for the customer. Okay. And one of the big complaints that we get with LiDAR users specifically is it's always a headache to integrate the drone and the LiDAR payload and the GNS antennas and all this stuff, hardware stuff has to get integrated. And then on top of that, you have to have 1, 2, or maybe 3 software programs to get the point cloud out of the LiDAR and classify the information how you want it and have a data deliverable that someone actually cares about. And so that's pretty complicated, right? And takes some expertise to get through all that. So we wanted to remove all of that. So we want to deliver you, similar to DJI, a full workflow experience where you get all the hardware and software for one provider. It all works together. There's no setup. There's no subscriptions or recurring fees, which is unheard of in the LiDAR space.
That's not weird.
Once you buy one of our Flux LiDARs, there is zero cost for software for life in perpetuity.
Wow.
No one does that.
How many upset people do you have with Union LiDAR industry right now?
Well, we are partners with all of the major LiDAR manufacturers out there, right? So they're all super frustrated, I'm sure, by that because they make a ton of money on the software subscriptions and the maintenance fees and the upgrade fees and the whatever
Yeah.
fees. And we're just not going to do any of that because we don't like it when we see that on our credit card statements, and we're sure our customers don't either. And so we want to produce a high value, high quality, reliable piece of hardware that you can buy and get the most possible value out of this thing. Use it as long as you own it and get beautiful point clouds out of it for free in perpetuity, and democratized point clouds. And so we're not going to cover the full gamut of what every LiDAR can do out there. We kind of started on the lower end, although there is no low end of LiDAR.
Yeah.
As we know, they're all expensive. But the DJI L1 is very similar to our Flux L1. It's the exact same LiDAR sensor inside the Livox Avia. And we're selling that for about $14,000. And again,
Okay.
that's for the life of the LiDAR. You have software to produce a point cloud at that cost,
Wow.
no additional fees. So, it's our response really to all these customers reaching out, say, hey, I have a DJI M300, M400 with an L1 or L2, and I need to convert to an NDAA compliant system, give me something. And so I was having to say, hey, buy our Astro or Alta X and go talk to one of these LiDAR guys and then go talk to one of these software people. And so instead of doing that, we acquired a company out of the Netherlands called Aerial Precision, who had already created this software and some of the hardware. And we really brought our hardware strengths to the table. They brought the software strengths to the table. And now we're going to launch with 3 variants. So the Livox Avia is one, and it's going to be the cheapest. And then the other 2 options are the Hesai M2X or the NDAA compliant Ouster OS 164. And all of those will come with I think it's a 20 or 25 megapixel RGB camera baked in there, so you can colorize point clouds as well. Again,
but what allows for the on-site processing? Where is that taking place on the LiDAR unit itself?
So another thing we did there is developed our own IMU, GNS, and position orientation system is what they often refer to it in the LiDAR space to understand where you are geospatially in the world. We designed that from scratch. So a lot of these LiDAR integrators or LiDAR manufacturers will buy a LiDAR from someone, buy an IMU from someone else, usually Novatel or Planix or somebody like that. They're very expensive IMUs, and then you have to pay recurring software fees to those companies who sell you those IMUs. We're not doing that. And so we built ours from the ground up from scratch. So we reduce cost and just not only the development, but we're not purchasing it a commercially off the shelf thing. And then we're also not getting charged any recurring subscription fees or costs there. So we're not having to pass that on to the customer. So that's the hardware and how we use some first principles thinking to kind of get rid of the traditional IMU and build our own and reduce costs there and remove subscription fees. And then on the processing side, we thought about this a lot, but for now at launch, it's going to be iPad based.
Okay.
And so any iPad Pro can be used. And again, it's a free app that you download from the Apple Store. It's called Flow. So the Flux is the LiDAR. Freefly Flow is the app. And anyone can download the Flow app for free. And we do expect once we get the smart dovetail versions of these 3 LiDARs to be available and working, we're going to launch the DJI Skyport connector as well for anyone that wants to use a DJI aircraft with our Flux LiDARs. And again, we'll use the same Flow app on an iPad. The processing time is roughly a quarter of the flight time. Fly, pick a number, fly for 10 minutes, you're going to, 2 to 3 minutes of processing time on your iPad right then and there, no external anything needed.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of upset people with you and force other people to adopt this business model to have the ability to keep up.
And so, but that's the other thing, right? These are just, I hate to say it, the low end of the LiDAR market, but these are the lower end of the LiDAR market and kind of that survey grade space. Yeah. There's a lot of higher end, higher performance, much more expensive options. And we just can't, again, go bite off all of those options. So we're starting at kind of the low to middle range, I guess, how to say it, of the LiDAR spectrum. And then we still want customers to use the higher end things, wherever that makes sense for them, right? We're not trying to say these are the only
Yeah.
LiDARs. These are just an easy option to kind of get started. And then if you want to upgrade and get fancy, you can do that still.
Yeah, I like that, because now you make LiDAR accessible, and now people are able to, try more things with it just because you could afford to try more things with it. And no subscription fees, because, we love those.
Right.
You guys did.
I've got plenty of subscription fees, so one more is unnecessary.
Tell me about it. As part of your, is it an annual conference now? Freefly Fest.
What about Freefly Fest?
Is it something that you guys plan to do annually?
Yes. So Freefly Fest, we just had it at the end of August.
Okay.
And so that's where we soft launched the Flux series of LiDARs, the 3 LiDArs. We also announced Alta X Gen 2, which is the next generation of Alta X, and a whole bunch of other things.
Okay.
But we just had that at the end of August. We're going to have one every year out there in the Seattle area near our offices, usually at the end of the summer there at the end of August. That's kind of the only time window of weather that you have a good chance of not getting rained on. But now that I'm living in Indiana, I want to do a Freefly Fest East as well, or maybe a Freefly Fest Caribbean, which sounds nice.
Let's get that done
in the wintertime. But my point is, I want to spread the love out and set some of these up, internationally even, but around the U.S. as well.
Okay. I know as one of the things that you guys demoed at Freefly Fest this year was a BVLOS flight using 4G, 5G technology on the Astro.
Right. So Verizon has been a good partner for us, and every Astro or Alta X Gen 2 comes with a LTE modem on board, and so you can throw a SIM card in there from Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever in North America, and have not only video feed and drone telemetry, but you could also command and control your aircraft. So Verizon has over 100 Astros flying around all over the United States, and they're all connected remotely to our hand controller, where anyone with connectivity can pick up a controller that obviously has permission and log into their account and pick from a drop down list of any of their however many Astros they have on that list, and remotely do cell phone tower inspections, for example, or any other number of applications remotely. So yeah, they had at Freefly Fest, we had pilots in Alaska and in Florida that were flying drones, sitting in front of us in Washington, 1,500
cool.
miles away.
That's really, and with the Part 108 stuff on the way, you get more and more applications for this and people using them in real world. Is there, all right, so you could tell me, is there any plan for like a Freefly dock anytime soon? Don't worry, I wouldn't tell anybody.
We're not working on it right at the moment. I'm happy to tell you what we're working on. We're swamped and got lots going on. But dock is not one of the things we're working on actively right now. It's certainly on our radar, and we get a lot of requests for it. But it's just not something that we're actively working on. We have some customers who have integrated their own docks.
Okay.
Archer First Response Systems down there in Florida has a great setup for Alta X, and some others have done it on our smaller platform Astro, but we just haven't done it ourselves. And frankly, I think we're going to have to design a drone from the ground up in tandem, in parallel with that dock to really do it right. So sure, we could, shoehorn Astro or Alta X into a dock, but I think people are going to want
some other stuff
solution to.
Yeah. What are you guys working on right now?
So the big things that we launched at Freefly Fest were, so the original Alta X is getting a firmware update to get it up to the latest PX4, smooth turns, easier integrations. Then we launched Alta X Gen 2, which you could think of as the airframe of Alta X, the original Alta X, but all of the internal electronics and avionics have been upgraded, and they now have parity with Astro, which is really powerful for Freefly. Now that means any software development we do, it was completely bifurcated and different for Alta X and Astro in the past. But now any software thing that we do for one of them, they both benefit from that, since we're on the same code base, using the same hardware, same flight controller, same onboard computer, same modem, cellular modem on board the aircraft, et cetera. Right. So it's really powerful for our development and speeding that process up. But it's also powerful for our customers who have mixed fleets, who maybe have Alta X Gen 2s and Astros, several different types of payloads, our Pilot Pro controllers, etc. All the training, the pilot operator experience is all the exact same. It's just one aircraft slightly larger than the other. So it's really powerful for these mixed use fleets as well as our own internal development. And then for Astro, we announced several new updates. So Astro Max got an upgrade to new high efficiency props that are about 10% more efficient.
Okay.
So get a little bit more flight time out of there. We added some new E-mount lens options for the Sony LR1 camera, a 50 millimeter f2.5. For the LR1, we added a Gremsy VIO integration. We've been working with Gremsy for a while on getting that EO-IR camera integrated. We added a top mount, so you can put our gimbal cameras or lidars or anything you want on the top on Smart Dovetail, as well on the bottom now, as well as a new isolator for payloads and extended landing gear. So a ton of new products there, and then obviously the Flux LiDARs that we mentioned. And so we announced all of those at Freefly Fest as kind of like a soft announcement to our partners and customers who attended. And then we're going to make a bigger announcement here at the end of the year about all these products, and have full launch videos and put a little bit of marketing behind them.
Okay.
But it was really just kind of Freefly Fest is a very informal, event where we have barbecue and a bunch of drones set up with different payload and software vendors. And it's really just kind of a great way to get hands-on with our products and our ecosystem and meet all the people who develop this technology, all the entire Freefly teams there, and a lot of our partners and the engineers and experts who make it. So it's just a really cool opportunity to get face-to-face with these people designing and building this technology and give us feedback and tell us how to get better.
Look how I need to add Freefly Fest to my list of conferences to get to next year.
Yeah, well, I know you're busy and you got to get around to a lot of them, but it's always a lot of fun, and we learn a lot. And so we really appreciate all the customers coming out.
Cool. I will definitely try to see if I can make it out there next year. You guys are still doing a lot of work on your cameras, and not just your drone cameras as well. I saw that recently you started putting out like scientific research work that was done using the Embers. Is it that somebody had like a magic moment, it's like, why not use this? Or is it that it's one of those situations where a school came in and was like, hey, we could use this to do all of the amazing things that they're doing with it right now?
Both. So, we always have some idea of what we think customers will want, and then we start making stuff and giving them prototypes and getting feedback, and it always kind of bends our path to reshape it. But we have a whole series of Ember cameras. Wave was our original high-speed camera. And then we've got the Ember S5K, S2.5K, and we're coming out with additional variants of that. And so there's just so many different applications, especially in cinematography for high speed or slow-mo photography and videography. And there's different frame rates and cinematic effects that people want. And so we try to keep the resolution, in the 4K, 5K space as high as possible, while also keeping those frame rates high. And it's just always this compromise of kind of what you can deliver in reliably in performance for that cost. But then on the scientific side, we had this hardware that is sort of a Russian doll of itself, where you can swap out sort of components, whether it's the sensor itself or the memory or the processor or what have you, and not have to kind of completely redesign a camera, but just swap out some components and get a completely different set of specifications and requirements that this camera is good for. So that was really the thought process there. You can expect, even higher resolution variants of Ember, or even faster frame rates of Ember for other applications, right? But we try to kind of start with that spec that we think is most applicable to the widest audience, and then we kind of go more niche and more niche, based around that same kind of architecture and product base that we started with foundationally.
Okay.
So they even just did another version of Ember for FPV drones. I could show you a cool video on. Not sure if I'm allowed to yet, but they basically ripped off all of the metal and aluminum and everything that was heavy on it, and it was used for heat sinking traditionally and getting a lot of heat out of there. But they 3D printed some super lightweight materials for the frame and put some high-powered fans on there, and it's on an FPV drone going really fast. We're getting a bunch of airflow over it, so it can be much lighter and doesn't need quite as much heat sinking. But that's just, again, another variant of using the same kind of camera architecture and all the same software and what have you, but modifying it for a different application on a different vehicle.
Before we continue, special announcement. We have just launched the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast drone pilot checklist. So whether you are a hobbyist or a commercial operator, this checklist will make sure that you have everything in order before you take off for your next flight. Now, to get the checklist, there's a link in the description, and you sign up and you will receive it in your email. Now, we are also announcing that we'll be launching the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast newsletter in a couple of weeks. So that's coming soon. And once you sign up to receive the checklist, you'll automatically be added to the newsletter listing. Or if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you can head over to the website, pilotsofthecaribbeanpod.com, and there's a form on the homepage where you could submit your name and your email address, and you'll be added to the newsletter list. And I guarantee you, you're not going to want to miss out on that because we have some really good stuff coming at you. So checklist, link in the description. If you just want to sign up for the newsletter, head over to the website and sign up now. Now back to it.
Okay, and just for the audience who don't know what I'm talking about, the video I saw, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, they were using it to film. So the first example I saw was a motor, a drone motor, and they filmed it, and then when they played it back and slowed it all the way down, you were able to tell the frequency of the vibration frequencies after they ran it through some sort of scientific software. And then you could go back and adjust it, and were able to reduce the amount of vibrations.
Yeah, it's so cool. So we have Ember Scientific Toolbox is what we call it, and it has all sorts of cool features in there. One of them is our Amplify feature, which is essentially AI that's amplifying motion. And so we'll use it on our own drones and our own quality control processes. So your motors on your four booms of your quadcopter will all look very stable and like they're not vibrating when you're flying around, hovering, or just kind of in a docile maneuver. But if you put our Ember camera on there and you're shooting it at hundreds or thousands of frames per second, and you turn on this AI amplify feature, it looks like that arm of that drone is just waving at you, where the other three are perfectly still, and you just would never see that with your naked eye, right? And so there's an incredible amount of testing that goes into our products, and we're, engineers are constantly trying to find ways to do things faster, smarter, more efficient, whatever. So a lot of these times we develop these products for cinema or for whatever, we end up using them ourselves, right? Kind of going back to that original story of, the two founders just trying to solve their own problems, get out of their own way, and be innovative to capture shots that were impossible before. So it's just that kind of same ethos that goes, it's weaved all throughout Freefly, constantly trying to find creative ways to solve our own problems. And then if we find it useful, we're sure there's somebody else out there that can find it useful. So throw it up on our web store and see what people like about it.
So I've seen you guys' drones being used for a whole bunch of applications, everything from carrying. I've seen a drone used to carry an anemometer, just carry the anemometer alone as part of a larger system, to everything cinematography, agricultural inspections. What is the most unconventional or surprising use of a Freefly drone that you've come across?
Man, there's so many crazy ones. Like I get a crazy one every week. Like it's that wild. So, in North Carolina, they were delivering hay to elephants in the zoo. And we're delivering Narcan to people overdosing in Tampa, Florida. NASA is flying at 2 miles up above the ground during an eclipse to measure, special weather and stuff that happens during an eclipse. I mean, it's just wild. Wow. The endless applications people think of. On Alta X, we've got 15 kilos, 35 pounds of payload capacity. So you got a lot of room to strap stuff on there, and people think of all sorts of stuff to strap on there.
That's cool. That's the hay one. Because all right, hay isn't heavy, but you strap enough of it on there, but then it gets really, really big. So you're using it, okay, but it's just for transport purposes, or they're actually using it to feed them?
They're transporting it from wherever the feed is kept
Right.
out to like a feeding station out in the middle of wherever. I think they had to drive a ground vehicle out there and hope the elephants didn't run over them before.
Right.
And so now they're basically just flying it over there and
Dropping it.
dropping it in this, bucket that they eat out of basically. And it's much safer, supposedly doesn't bother the elephants as much as the ground vehicles did, yada, yada. So, yeah, I mean, it's just every day, cool new application. I just got sent a video today of one of our integration partners, Drone Amplified. They're doing avalanche mitigation with Alta X. And so, think of mountainous areas with lots of snow. Those avalanches will cover people, obviously, or roads or buildings and be very disastrous and lethal. So these mountainous states have traditionally used mortar cannons from the Department of Defense from World War II
Right.
that are just barely working. And unfortunately, last year they accidentally shot one over the mountain they were trying to hit into the town behind it, and there was a 5-year-old kid laying on his bedroom floor,
Oh man.
and the shrapnel went through the window. And if he would have been sitting on the couch, he would have been a goner, but he was laying on the floor watching TV, and luckily he is alive today. So there's a better way to do this. We can drop it, with centimeter level accuracy with the drone. Then we can watch to make sure it went off, because they also have a bunch of issues where they shoot these mortars up and then they don't go off, and you have unexploded ordnance on the side of your ski
Yep.
slope where people are going to be skiing by. Not a great thing. So the drone just makes so much more sense for that application, and just again another cool drone application I never thought I'd be talking about.
Yeah,
But,
for
here
real.
we are.
From where you sit, is what are you most excited about in terms of the advancements in technologies for us in the next 3-5 years going forward?
I mean, I think the big two areas that I'm really excited about are battery technology and just AI in general, And so I think one of the big limitations with drones is flight time. And there's some really cool battery technology that we're testing now that's going to double our flight time overnight.
Wow.
And, at a relatively same price. And, the batteries look the same and everything's, feels and looks the same to the customer, basically. So that's really exciting to me. People traditionally try to stick wings on things to get longer flight times, but there's all sorts of disadvantages to having a wing in terms of, taking off and landing in tight spots, or just being able to hover in general, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think multi-rotors really are so advantageous for so many reasons. It's just that limitation of flight time that I think is really going to change here, over the next year or two, and make them much more valuable. And then AI, there's just so much money going into it right
Yeah.
now. I have no clue where it's all going to go, but I am optimistic. And, I see people like Skydio, for example, who have raised, $1 billion, and their entire premise is focused on software that, provides optical avoidance for these flying aircraft. And there's some open source models now that have been built around these, AI tools that are getting almost as good, and so for guys like us, I'm hoping and praying that we can save $1 billion and steal some of this open source software and reuse it and make it more robust and reliable. But there's just all sorts of cool AI things that it's going to be able to. You can be able to interact with your aircraft and your drone operation in a much more natural way and less robotic way, I think, here in the future.
Yeah, the AI advancements or the speed at which they're advancing is scary. And the battery stuff is different from you guys because you make your own batteries. So that'll be interesting to see because
Yeah, we're really excited about it. And we're testing a bunch of new chemistry right now. And, batteries are one of those things that takes the longest, time cycle in terms of development, testing, and making sure everything's reliable, because they can light on fire, obviously, and burn people. So, we just go above and beyond in that testing. And unfortunately, that takes longer than I wanted to. But, I'm super excited about it. If I can literally, the same Astro or Alta X that I have today, I can just swap out the batteries and get twice the amount of flight time. I mean, that's a huge value proposition to a lot of customers who have fleets of these aircraft already. So, we're trying to, unlike DJI or Apple, we're not trying to put out a new thing every year and you have to buy the new thing for everything to work. Like, we want to use building blocks and let all, as much as possible, it's never fully possible, as much as possible, make things backwards compatible and integrate and interoperable between our systems as much as possible. As difficult as that is.
What is I know you guys are big. I know you guys are big in the US as well. But what does Freefly look like outside of the US?
So we've got a dealer network that's covering most of the major kind of countries and tier one cities. But because of our focus in the cinema space, most of those dealers internationally are kind of cinema, pro audio, pro video type of
Right.
focus. And so as Freefly, as I noted, is kind of expanding into these other commercial applications and enterprise markets, we're definitely looking for good partners internationally that are kind of, we got the good ones in the cinema space, but outside of the cinema space, we're looking for those kind of good inspection, surveying, mapping, ag, and other
Hmm.
application type of resellers that have those customer networks, understand those local regulations, and can help us, kind of be that front line of support in their specific area.
Yeah, we have to get you guys onto the Caribbean. I know you already have the shirt for it. I've seen it.
Absolutely, yeah. We love working with our partners. We're not trying to add a ton of partners. We really want to keep the quality bar high. So it's quality over quantity for us with our reseller partners. But we also want to be available. And when people reach out, I don't want you to have to drive more than an hour or two to get a demo. So not there yet, but slowly trying to fill in our dealer map of coverage internationally.
Nice. Matt, before I let you go, I have just one more question for you. And it's a question that I usually ask all of my guests, just to get an idea of, what their journey has been like in the industry. So what is one thing you wish you knew about the drone industry before you got into it? Because you've been in it at several levels.
What's one thing I wish I knew about the drone industry before I got into it? Um, just how hard hardware is, I guess. You touch and feel these consumer products that we interact with in our everyday life, and they just seem so natural and reliable and easy to use. You look at an iPhone or something like that, and it's crazy how much time and energy and engineering goes
Hmm.
into making that experience, right? And so I was pretty blind to that. I wasn't. I studied aviation and technology, but I didn't do full on engineering in college. So I think that was probably my biggest, you know, expectation that was not met. I thought this stuff would be easier to make, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I, I can only imagine. I have no idea what it takes to to build something like an Astro or the
Yeah,
Alta.
and then building one is pretty tough, but easy.
Hmm.
And when you got to build 1,000 of them, or many thousands of them, reliably and repeatably, and customers keep coming back, and that's really the hard part too, is the scale and keeping the quality bar high, keeping supply chain where it needs to be, keeping employees happy. So it's just a tough juggling act to try to compete in the hardware space, but it's fun and it's a really rewarding too, right? And I think anyone that's serious about it is going to build their own hardware. So that's that's the path we've taken, and it's been difficult but fun.
You guys are doing extremely well at it.
Yeah, I'm extremely impressed with the team. I've only been here for the last 4 years, but it's just an incredible group of people that are all aligned and trying to do the right thing, and we have a ton of
Okay.
fun. And I hope anyone listening is looking for a job, come look at our website. We got a bunch of openings. Please apply if any of them apply to you and look interesting and fun. We need more help.
Cool, no problem, man. Matt, before I let you go, where can persons reach out to you, learn more about Freefly and the incredible stuff that you guys have going on?
Sure. So our website is an incredible wealth of information, freeflysystems.com. If you go check on the support tab there and go to our Freefly wiki, that's where all of our manuals, all of our documentation is all freely available to you. You don't have to reach out to a salesperson or, get behind some paywall. And then there's a ton of YouTube videos as well. And so I'm happy to share, any of those with folks to kind of get familiarization with our products, and then come see us at events. We run into each other all the time. I know we just both got back from Commercial UAV Expo. I'll be out in South Carolina next week at the International Highway Engineering Exchange Program, IHEEP, in Myrtle Beach. The following week, I'll be out in Tillamook Test Range out in Oregon for AUVSI's Cascade Fall Symposium. And then the following week, in last week of October, I'll be in Georgia at UTAP. So if you happen to be in any of those locations and want to come out and see some Freefly products, get hands-on demonstrations, we'd love to see you there.
Nice. Matt, thank you very much for joining me on the Pilots of the Caribbean podcast. This has been, it's about, what, 8-9 months overdue since the last time we were supposed to have it.
I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Thank you so much for getting this scheduled, and I really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thank you very much, man. It happened when it was supposed to happen. We had a lot of new stuff to talk about as well this time, so that's fine. Right.
That's right. Lots of fun stuff come too. So stay tuned.
Nice. Ladies and gentlemen, Matt Eisenberger of Freefly. Take care.